Emily Ulman, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Greg. Thrilled to be here.
You've got a great new album, Severe Clear, coming out on October 10. Uh,
Yeah.
how long has this album been in the making?
I guess, sort of, it's the first album that I've released in 10 years, but I suppose I've been sort of writing it and recording it and all those things for probably 2.5 years. It's probably the length of time that it's taken to kind of coordinate everything in the studio time and um, the pre-production and all of those bits to land the final product.
Yeah. Um,
Well,
for the most part, it's quite stark, just you and the guitar. Was that the plan from the get-go?
it's funny that you say that because I feel like each song, I think of them as like characters because I feel like each song has this kind of personality that I relate to in whatever way. But I guess there's um, Every Hillside, which was the first song that I released in March this year on my birthday. Yeah, that's very stripped back. That's just a couple of guitars and yeah, vocals. But otherwise, there's sort of a mixture of everything from Wurlitzer to piano to yeah, drums, bass.
Yeah, I guess the production is subtle.
It's subtle, yes. Bonnie Knight was the incredible producer and mixing genius behind this record, and their ear and their touch is just so, yeah, it's so deft and so, yeah, subtle, as you said. And it's really, yeah, like nuanced and intricate. And I think like it does have that sparse feel. And that's really what I want because I kind of write in that way. I write in this really skeletal way that kind of puts the narrative and the lyrics and the sentiment sort of front and center. And I really wanted that to be the first thing that you engage with.
Yeah. Who are some other artists that work in that same manner that you're a fan of?
Uh, That's a good question. I did when I was first speaking to Bonnie back a few years ago. I kind of sent them a playlist of references and not necessarily sort of like musical influence as such, but just, yeah, people that I really loved, listening to the production of their records. And I think the ones that really always come to mind, and I'm sure it wouldn't be the first time that these artists would be named, but Big Thief and Adrian Lenker and Julia Jacqueline and Aldous Harding. Um, there's some Phoebe Bridges there's some treatment of her vocals in there that I really love on some of her tracks, but maybe Boy Genius more so. Just when the treatment of the female vocal is really present and yeah, and kind of affecting and close.
Yeah. Tell me about the title song, Severe Clear, what it means and why did it deserve to be the title of the album?
So I'm often inspired by sort of phrases or things that I'll hear in passing, or I'll be reading a book or an article or having a conversation and something will, way, the way someone says something like yesterday I was chatting to a friend and they said something about the loud crowd at the AFL and just like that kind of, obviously it's rhyming, but I think just like the monosyllabic, anyway, that, and so severe clear was a phrase that I came upon reading an article, and I immediately was intrigued because it was just sort of used in passing to describe a sky. And so I sort of went into investigative mode and discovered that it's an aviation term and it refers to skies that are so pristine and so pure and clear that pilots often describe the visibility as being sort of too dazzling and too perfect in the way, because I mean, even today in Melbourne, it's so beautiful out there. It's a severe clear sky day. There's no clouds, and it's that kind of it's almost threatening. It's almost dangerous the way that pilots describe the lack of depth perception and the way that you can't make sense of of how close or far away anything is, and severe clear conditions often follow a storm. And so that really appealed to me as well, that you have these perfect, gorgeous, beautiful conditions, but there's sort of some turmoil and angst in order to achieve them. And I feel like that's definitely a metaphor that a lot of us relate to.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
You mentioned the AFL, Fans in the Stands, another song on the album. The title obviously refers to football, but it seems like that song is so much more.
Yeah, I think a lot of my songs are like that. I'll have a particular theme or narrative in mind, and then all of a sudden, something else will emerge. I actually sat down to write a song about, walking to the football and back with, crowds of people and feeling sort of anonymous in the crowd setting, but at the same time feeling a sense of belonging and togetherness that I feel, surrounded by people who have the same adoration for the game and for the team that I do. But when I actually sat down to write it, I ended up writing something quite different, which was about visiting a close friend of mine in hospital, and just the way that, the visitors that she would receive would do this similar pilgrimage of going to her bedside and back. And so that sort of became like this intertwined kind of imagery of just sort of, the procession going to and from the game and to and from her bedside. And then at the same time, that whole idea of anonymity um, at a game kind of led and fed itself to the opposite, sort of when I'm on stage, that I feel so vulnerable and so exposed and so, and the absolute antithesis of anonymous. And so then there's this performative element of, knowing my lines so perfectly when, because the songs they're written, they're crafted, and it's such a fluent experience. And then I come down and I'm just sort of I'm not rehearsed, and I don't exactly know how to articulate or express or be in the world.
Yeah. Gab Strum, Japanese Wallpaper, had some involvement with this record. In what way?
In so many ways. Gab is just, a genius. It's a genius musician and songwriter and producer and collaborator. He played lots and lots of instruments, from bass to piano to whirly to electric guitar to just noises and synth and God knows what. So there was that, but he was also very sort of collaborative. It was a very collaborative experience in general, but Gab and Bonnie would often sort of discuss various approaches to songs, and but more than anything, he was just sort of open. He was really happy to experiment and to try things, and just to be led by Bonnie, who had sort of very clear and distinctive ideas. And they just worked beautifully together. And it was a kind of a privilege to be part of and to be witness to, because that sort of alchemy, when it's your own music that's coming to life. I kept sort of musing and laughing to the others in the studio that I felt like I was at a day spa, because it just felt so pampering that here are my creations and like my babies coming to life and being sort of treated with the utmost respect and care. And it was just such a beautiful, just rich, and like, I don't want to sound too earnest, even though that was the experience. I absolutely loved the experience of working with them in the studio, and it just being about my songs. And I think like that kind of um, brilliance in their craft, and it just really shines through. I feel very lucky.
Uh, in general, what is the starting point for an Emily Ulman song?
I think, as I mentioned, I think it'll be a word or a phrase. Occasionally there'll be a melody stuck in my head, and I'll sort of hum it into some sort of voice memo or some notes app on my phone. But I generally always have a song on the go in my brain, like I do now. And sometimes it won't kind of present quickly and I'll just move on to something else, but I'll still capture that kernel of an idea. But generally speaking, it'll be kind of a lyrical moment. And I'll just I'll just follow it. I often, I know other songwriters and other, um, artists in whatever form speak about like they're kind of not knowing how involved they are, and that definitely resonates. I'm not really sure. It's not, I don't feel particularly present with it, even though I couldn't be more present, if that makes sense. Like it's just sort of almost happening to me, and I'm kind of the obedient. Yeah, I'm just following along and seeing where it takes me.
Yeah. Um, the track order, is that important to you?
It is. I think about this a lot, actually. It is, and I think even more so with the vinyl because I do have that nostalgic old school mentality of wanting something physical and wanting to kind of enjoy the lyrics and the printout and the whole like it's such a beautifully designed album by my friend Alex, and it's gold and it's heavy and it's beautiful. So there is that, and I think like having the physical product obviously makes the track order particularly important. But I'm also, completely aware that it is highly unlikely that most people will listen to it as an entire album. It's on various playlists, which is also awesome. I love when people kind of, add it to their own playlists. And yeah, and I actually like asked a bunch of people who, to help me with that order because I just felt so attached to all of them. I couldn't quite get my head around what would make the most sense. And my friend Stephen, it took him about 3 minutes, I reckon. He was just like, nah, this is it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's actually, yeah. And finally, the last track on the album is my favorite. And I haven't put it out as a single, but I really hope that people do. Um, get to it and hear it because I just love it.
Yeah. With your debut album, I was hearing a lot of steel string acoustic sounds. This one, I'm hearing more nylon string sounds. Any particular reason why?
Um, no, but I love that. I love that tidbit. It's funny, it would probably be the opposite. My first instrument as a 6-year-old was my mum's nylon string. I have such an affection towards that album and I mean, sorry, towards that instrument. And maybe that is why, because I feel like there's a lot of nostalgia and wistful longing. I write from that place, so that wouldn't surprise me. I think that there is that. Yeah, it has such a rich, I don't know how to say this word properly, like timbre. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I'm sure there is something kind of very primal about it being so connected to my childhood and when I first discovered music and all the folkies that my parents were listening to, the Leonard Cohens and Bob Dylans and Joan Baez and Peter, Paul and Mary and Tom Paxton. Like that, they were very much of the acoustic guitar generation. So yeah, and the nylon string specifically. So I love that observation. I will take that. And that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. You do a lot of work on the other side of the fence as a band booker, curator. What have you learned in doing that sort of work that you take into being a musician?
I don't know if it's that way or if it's the other way. I feel like being a musician really informs my work behind the scenes because um, it's a very artist first approach. Um, yeah, I always center the artist, and I think like that is not necessarily always the way people approach these things. I think yeah, just being mindful of the needs of the artist and whether that be like on a particular lineup or a particular like backstage requirement or just really, and also I guess like, I mean, I know, music is a business. I'm not sort of naive to that, but that, that if the artist is happy, something will more likely succeed. It doesn't necessarily have to be a business first or a money first or how many drinkers you get into a room or a festival or whatever. It can be about just, the pure celebration of the artistry and the craft.
Yeah. One of your great achievements was the Isolate Festival during the pandemic. It gave a lot of exposure to artists who
Mm.
couldn't find it otherwise. For me personally, artists like Didiri and Hannah Cameron, Carla Geneve, Murphy, Stella Donnelly, I didn't know of those artists before.
Oh, I
isolate,
like that.
and they've gone on to be very busy. I'm not saying you're responsible for
No,
their
absolutely not.
careers, but you certainly gave them a boost. You must be really proud of that period.
Yeah, I am. I mean, honestly, yeah, there's no credit that I'm taking for their, subsequent success whatsoever. I think it was just an opportunity for artists to actually just be able to play to an audience. And yeah, like absolutely, I unequivocally, I was so inspired at that time by, and that kind of was the impetus to wanting, to be a musician and record again after such a huge break, just listening to so much music and just being surrounded and, um, you know, consumed really by all this brilliant local talent as well. Like I think we really punch above our weight as far as, um, our, ability and brilliance. And it was just so awesome to, yeah, to be privy and, yeah, supporting those artists. So I think, and I just was so creative. I just like wrote most of my album in that time, which is wild because I was busier than I'd ever been before. But yeah, that often is the way, I guess.
What do you think the long-term effect of the pandemic has been on the industry?
On the industry, well, I mean, so many. I think we're still like feeling it. I know like there's been a huge amount of recovery and people have more, what's the word? Like assurance or faith or, because there was a lot of cancellations. And so that kind of leads to people um, not wanting to buy tickets or not having kind of the security and feeling like things are going to go ahead. So I feel like that's settling down a lot more. But I think like, and I think, yeah, in general, the rebuild in our local scene is amazing. But I know that, venues were impacted wildly, as were festivals. And that trickles down to media and everything, like everyone, it's such a symbiotic kind of ecosystem that if one part of it is affected, everyone is. But I think like what I could see immediately after was just sort of like the next gen of fans, I guess, because the next gen of artists weren't necessarily performing or recording as much as, or as they would have potentially if things had been open. And with that comes the next generation of fans who go to the gigs, who go to venues, who go to festivals, and oftentimes I would hear, even anecdotally, like my nieces or whatever, who missed that kind of education or that kind of yeah, experience of going to gigs for the first time or festivals for the first time. They would just hang out with friends at home, or like it was just a different mentality. So I think that kind of re-education, I guess, or education for some, of like going out again, of buying tickets ahead of time, of knowing that gigs are going to go ahead, and just supporting grassroots, because yeah, you need the grassroots bands, you need the grassroots audience to then develop into your mid-career and your then seminal, long-lasting, amazing local Australian talent and crowd.
Yeah. So October 10, the album's out, Severe Clear. Will you be playing some shows, playing this material?
Yes, that is the plan. Yep. So on the 10th, I'll be doing an in-store here in Melbourne at one of my favorite record stores, Rocksteady, with Pat and Jay. And then, yeah, I'll be playing some shows locally and around the country subsequently into the new year.
Yeah. And what's the grand plan for Emily Ulman?
Good question. I don't know. Does anyone have a grand plan? Typically, if I have a plan, it kind of diverts so far off the rails that there's no point. But I don't know. I'm going to keep being creative. I'm still going to keep, plugging away and promoting other music. And yeah, I don't know. Enjoy this moment because it's been a while in the making. So I can't wait to share Severe Clear with audiences. And yeah, I feel very lucky. It's just a really amazing experience. I can't believe it. I'm also like, it's here, it's coming. Yeah.
All right, Emily, it's been great to catch up, and
Thank you
look
so
forward
much,
to the
Greg.
album, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you. And also thank you for the support of, local talent. It doesn't go unnoticed and it's super important. So thank you so much.
Thank you.